Batu attacked and burned Moscow in 1238, and then the city of Vladimir. Here they killed the entire population. The family of the Grand Duke took refuge in the cathedral, but the Mongols burned it over their heads. A month later, the Grand Duke met them in battle at the Sita River near Yaroslavl, where he was defeated and killed. Terror of the Mongols now spread westward. In 1239, the Prince of the Cumans asked King Bela IV of Hungary for permission to settle with his people in the Hungarian kingdom. Bela agreed, and the Cumans, on their arrival in Hungary, converted to Latin Christianity. The Mongols, who had been targeting the Cumans, considered this a provocation. They dispatched word to King Bela that they now numbered him an enemy and a legitimate target for subjugation. In 1240, the Mongols captured Kiev, utterly looting the city. Even the tombs of the saints were broken open. The Mongols were now within striking distance of Hungary. They preferred to campaign in the winter, when the rivers and marshes were frozen. The hardy Mongolian horsemen functioned well in the winter, while their opponents generally suffered from the bitter cold. The most important Mongolian commander during this period, General Subutai, is remembered today as one of the greatest military minds in history. It was he who had been the primary military strategist for Genghis Khan. Now, Subutai set the winter of 1241 for the invasion of Hungary. The Mongols invaded Poland and, on February 13, captured Sandomierz. They now divided their host into several smaller armies. Batu assigned part of the army to his brother Orda and Baidar, son of the late Chagatai Khan. On April 9, at the Battle of Legnica, Orda and Baidar defeated a Polish and Moravian army. While Baidar and Orda swept through Poland, Batu and Subutai advanced into Hungary. The two Mongol forces showed remarkable coordination. The speed of the Mongol messengers allowed Batu and Subutai to know when Baidar and Orda had overcome their Polish opponents. A mere day after the Mongol victory at Legnica, the Mongol southern flank was secured by a detachment which ravaged Hermannstadt some 500 miles away and defeated the army of Transylvania. Batu and Subutai had already been harassing King Bela's forces at Pest. They withdrew, allowing the Hungarian king to pursue them. Then, on the heath at Mohi, southwest of the Shayo River, just before it links with the Tiza River, Batu and Subutai halted and prepared to engage the Hungarians in battle. During the Mongols' feigned retreat, Subutai and Batu rode ahead to inspect their selected field of battle. On April 10, the Mongol army passed over the heath, crossed the river Shayo using the stone bridge, and advanced 10 miles farther into the woods, concealing their position. From here, the hills and vineyards of Tokai lay ahead of them, with the Tiza River on their flank. That evening, the army of King Bela IV arrived at the heath of Mohi. The king dispatched Hungarian scouts on horseback to inspect the land ahead. The scouts crossed the bridge, rode toward the woods, found nothing, then returned to guard the bridge while the Hungarian army laid camp on the heath. As a defensive barrier, Bela and his men encircled the camp with hundreds of wagons, tied together with chains and ropes. This was a battle-tested tactic against nomadic armies. However, Batu's army was no traditional nomadic army, but had brought with it advanced siege equipment. As the sun set, Batu led his commanding staff to a hilltop so that they could view the position of the Hungarian army. Essentially, the enemy was boxed in. To the right of the Hungarians lay the marshes of the river Tiza, while ahead of them lay the river Shayo, and to their left and rear lay hills and forests. Batu implored his commanders that the Hungarians must be kept on the heath at all costs. After nightfall, Subutai advanced with perhaps 30,000 horsemen over the hills and back around to the flooded Shayo River, across from the heath. From this position, he would be able to rush over and attack the Hungarians from behind, while Batu engaged them from the front. To prepare for this, Subutai had his men begin constructing a wooden bridge to the south. Surprisingly, King Bela's scouts didn't detect any of this. According to James Chambers, Bela's scouts had already proved themselves to be inept on several occasions. At dawn, Batu began his assault on the stone bridge. The Hungarian defenders held the west bank until more troops arrived from the camp. It appeared that the dense ranks of Hungarians would be able to hold the bridge against Batu's cavalry. But Batu had planned for this. He brought up 7 catapults and began to bombard the Hungarians holding the bridge. As one chronicler recorded, to the accompaniment of thunderous noise and flashes of fire, Batu's bombardment began to drive the Hungarians back. Sources from the time describe the catapults launching fireballs, and historians have speculated that the Mongols may have employed gunpowder during this battle. If that's the case, it's no wonder that Batu's engines proved so effective. Protected by this barrage, the Mongol horsemen now crossed the stone bridge. At this point, Batu's cavalry now faced the full Hungarian army. The battlefield limited Mongol maneuverability, which had so often been their deadliest weapon. Slowly, the Mongols advanced toward the center of the heath, holding back the Hungarian cavalry with repeated bursts of arrows. Meanwhile, Duke Koloman, the Templars, and Archbishop Ugrin led the attack against the Mongols. Over the course of 2 hours of fighting in these close-quarter conditions, the Mongols suffered major casualties, their ranks becoming dangerously depleted. The Hungarians, Croatians, and Templars fought with intense valor, and at this point, the battle was in their favor. Desperate, the Mongols began to stretch out into a half circle, as though they might try and surround the enemy. The Hungarians now seemed poised to deliver a decisive charge through the Mongol line. However, at this moment, Subutais' forces arrived from the rear, arranging themselves in a half circle. Subutais' cavalry now operated in conjunction with Batu's, closing in on the enemy with a hail of arrows.
Okay. Welcome, everybody, to the Real Crusades History live stream. Coffee and the Crusades. Here we are. It's another Tuesday, so we're ready to go. Hope everybody can hear okay. Let me know if the audio is decent. Lambert's wearing his Antioch shirt today. Awesome. Well, thank you, Lambert. Glad to hear that you like that shirt. You know, if you have a picture of yourself wearing it, send it to me at realcrusadeshistory@gmail.com, and we will show it right here on this cool live stream that we do. My wife just brought me a fresh cup of coffee, and I'm ready to talk to you guys about medieval history. So I'm thinking I'm going to keep up with the subtitle of "Ask Me Anything About the Crusades," because I do feel like that kind of attracts more of the non-regulars in. Kind of curious. They see that in their feed and they click on it. Of course, we got a great crowd of regulars that show up for this little show here. So it's good to have everybody here. Here, this is from Welsh Muslim Dave. He says, "Hey Stephen, what's the latest with the TV show?" Well, we are going to do. We're going to do take 2 on releasing the. The scene from the pilot. You guys may have seen that. This Friday, Austin and I are going to once again do the Knights of the Cross teaser on a scene from the pilot. The pilot is going to come out in late November, and we're going to do the release of the Purgatory scene again. I mean, it's basically already out, but I want to do another stream on it where we talk about that, just because last time Austin and I tried to do it, we got kind of interrupted and weren't able to really finish the stream. So, yeah, like Alexander is pointing this out. Why is it impossible to find the stream you did last Tuesday? And why have you stopped doing live streams on Friday? Well, I stopped doing live streams every Friday just because of my workload has increased with the channel, which is a good thing. I've got more advertisers wanting more videos, so I'm trying to make more videos more often. And so I decided to just do streams on Tuesday from now on. So just for now, I think that's because these are short streams, but it kind of takes out a chunk of time on either side as you're getting going with it and winding down from it. So hopefully everybody's okay with that. So we'll just do our hangout stream on Tuesdays for now, same time, 11 a.m. and 11 a.m. Central Time, noon Eastern Time. And the reason that stream that Austin and I did is not up anymore is just because we got interrupted, and it was kind of, I felt like it was kind of, not what I wanted it to be. I wanted it to be a little longer and us to have a more in-depth conversation. And basically, I got interrupted by a phone call that I had to go attend to something. And so my brain was suddenly not there, and I was not really able to focus on what we were talking about. And it's a really cool thing because I want to release this. I want to put out this purgatory scene and kind of go into discussions about it. But anyway, so the point there, Welsh Muslim, are you really a Welsh Muslim, Dave? Is that's the latest on the TV show. Also, to get more info, but we have made a pilot episode. The pilot episode has been made. We partnered with Cinema Forte, a great group of guys led by an awesome director named Aaron Stevenson, and also, let's see here. Okay, yeah. And his team at Cinema Forte, Greg Johnson. And Austin and I partnered with them, Christian Channel partnered with them, and we have created this pilot episode, which you guys will get to see next month. It'll be out and also if you go to knightsofthecross.com, right there you can see the purgatory scene is up on the Christian Channel's YouTube channel. is over there. I swear every time I look at the chat and I start like reading something while I'm saying something, I guess I'm like a one-track mind person or something. I've got to stay on target. But anyway, Sam has a cool comment. Video ideas if you have sponsors, get a sword into a video on weapons of the Crusades. Yeah, I do want to kind of do some of that. Like I was kind of inspired by you, Sam. And I still think you, Sam, I mean, with all the stuff you have, you should be doing regular videos where you discuss weapons. People love that stuff. But I want to kind of start to get some more authentic weaponry and that kind of thing, and do some stuff like that. But anyway, I'll give you guys a little preview of the next video that's coming out, which I'm hoping will be kind of a semi-controversial topic that will and before I continue on, please guys do visit knightsofthecross.com and help out the show as much as you can. But we'll talk about some more of that here. This is a preview of the new video I'm working on for the Real Crusades History channel. This is could the Mongols have conquered Europe? Which I haven't really gotten that deep into the Mongols until recently. And I always kind of, in studying that period, I always kind of like, you look at a little bit at the Battle of Mahi, a little bit at the Battle of Legnica. Okay, the Mongols beat the Poles and beat the Hungarians, then they withdrew because supposedly the Great Khan died. But actually, that's been shown to be pretty much, conclusively not true. I mean, the idea that it would have been impossible for Batu Khan and Subutai, who were the Mongols who invaded Europe in 1241, to have known about that. So they withdrew. The question is why? And I think when you look at the actual campaign, you look at, again, I'm getting distracted by chat, Xenex, Louis with a very passive expression combined with a speech bubble cracks me up. Yeah, that was kind of the idea. I kind of thought that would be funny, especially Subutai, the great General Subutai. But yeah, it's okay to use a little humor now and then with these videos. But I don't know it. But anyway, to get back to what I was saying, and you guys tell me what you think about. I'm actually really curious if you guys have opinions on the Mongols and their propensity to actually conquer Europe. I mean, I used to think, okay, well, of course they could have. I mean, they conquered everything. And, I guess the circumstances of history prevented them from conquering Europe. But the truth is, their actual campaigns, when they went into Hungary and Poland, were not as successful as people often think. I mean, they were very successful on the battlefield, but they barely won those battles. They suffered major casualties. And then they weren't ever really able to deal with the fortified positions in these regions. And I think that pretty much explains why they withdrew. I mean, they didn't know that the Great Khan had died. Uh, they withdrew because, I mean, the campaigns got bogged down. I mean, that's my suspicion. That's kind of what I've been led to thinking based on what I've seen. And this is not an area that I'm majorly interested in, but that does seem to be what happened. And so, given that, I think that the Mongols could not have conquered Europe. I think that the outcome of their invasions of Eastern/Central Europe sort of show that. So it's kind of interesting because, Alexander says, "Me too. Used to think that, but now I've become very skeptical." Yeah, I mean, I think that, and people will say things like, "Well, they conquered China. Of course, they could have conquered Europe because at the time, obviously, China was wealthier, more sophisticated in some ways than Europe was at this time." But actually, I think that kind of played in Europe's favor because China didn't have all these scattered castles everywhere. It had more like a few major administrative centers that were fortified. And it also is easier to move large armies in China, whereas Europe was mostly forested. It did not have paved roads. So you've got like this muddy, forested, hilly, mountainous part of the world that's got all of these castles up on these like crazy ledges everywhere that you can't even get to. So yeah, I think basically it would have been impossible for the Mongols to have conquered it. It's kind of an interesting thing to conclude, because I think it also might tell us a bit about the Ottomans. Excuse me. The Ottomans were obviously much more successful at conquering parts of Europe, but some of that might have come into play too if they had tried to press deeper into Western Europe. Anyway, I don't want to ramble too much on this, but if you guys have any comments on the Mongols, I would be interested to hear them. I have gotten kind of interested in them lately. I do think Subutai is a very interesting general. He was obviously a genius. The way he dealt with the difficult situations in Poland and Hungary are quite impressive. The senior prince who he was basically leading the campaign with wanted to withdraw because things were going so bad, but Subutai urged him to stay the course. So, here we got and Zenex is Croatian, so he's probably got some perspective on this. Zenex said, "I would chalk it up to Hungarians and Croats quite literally having God on our side. Providence has its part to play. The Mongols were utterly clapped in Croatia." Yeah, I think that's a good point. And also on that note, the Hungarians and the Poles and the Croats fought like to the death, which is I heard an expert on the Mongols talking about this on a lecture series. Who he was saying basically, look, the Mongols didn't like to go into a place and basically have to fight everybody until they were dead. The Mongols like to roll in, everybody's terrified, they just submit immediately. Okay, whatever, we'll pay taxes, and that's how the Mongols like to do it. But in Hungary and Poland, I mean, yeah, they defeated these guys on the battlefield, but then they kind of kept fighting. I mean, and in Croatia too, they would hide out. There was a lot of guerrilla attacks, which Subutai would punish brutally, but it kept happening. And people are hiding up in these castles, and people are fighting to the death. So again, you've got a less, at the time, Europe's a bit more rugged. It's rough around the edges. It's poorer than a place like China. People aren't as domesticated. People aren't as kind of go back to the old Robert Howard thesis, but people are a bit more warlike. I mean, you got a peasantry that's more regularly involved in warfare. And so it's kind of like, okay, yeah, we can like spend months and months fighting these people and getting ground down and, losing tons of guys. And yeah, I guess we can eventually kill everybody, but for God's sake, So kind of interesting. kind of an interesting dynamic there. I mean, sometimes I think a less sophisticated society is better able to deal with an invasion like that, or it's like almost by default. I mean, if you look at the Polish and Hungarian response to the Mongols the first time, there was a lot to be desired there. I mean, it was pretty chaotic and hectic, and they didn't really have time to prepare. But later on, as these videos I've done about the later invasions kind of show, they got their act together and were able to deal with it better. But even in that kind of crazy, those first invasions in 1241, 1242, even then, I mean, the Mongols came close to losing. I mean, the Battle of Mahi was a very tough fought battle. The Mongols almost lost that battle. They lost a lot of men. There was a point when it looked like the Mongols were definitely about to lose. Subutai saved it because he did this thing where he had some guys in reserve who came around the back. And I don't know. It's just kind of interesting. You guys can tell me what you think. Anyway, I'll stop rambling about the Mongols now, and we will get to whatever you guys want to talk about, because that's what this is about, is what the audience wants to talk about. So Alexander, our good friend Alexander, says, was the master of the Templars at the time of Las Navas de Tolosa really Portuguese? When you search, he looks French. I would have to look that up. Now, I'm wondering, are you talking about the overall leader of the Templars, like the Grand Master, or are you talking about the Master of Portugal or the Master of Aragon or whoever? I can't remember. Was there a separate master for Portugal and Aragon, or was there just a single master of all of Spain? Can't remember that either. So, but yeah, who was? So, just tell me who you're talking about there, Alexander. And by the way, if anybody wants to, power chats are available. I will keep an eye out for those down in the description below. You can use the power chat website, which uses PayPal, to ask a paid question. I will keep an eye out for that if anybody chooses to use that. Let's see here. But yeah, clarify that for me, Alexander. So Zenix, Croatia basically consisted of great fields in Slavonia and Lower Bosnia, with well-fortified cities, and then very, very rugged mountainous terrain in Bosnia and Lika, then a very prosperous coast. Thank you for that information, Zenix. That's very interesting. Yeah, and that kind of sounds like most of the broad fields in Europe were more to the east at this time. Like Hungary had some, but then the farther west you go, that ends and everything is forested. Like apparently, Stonehenge, the area around Stonehenge was forest at the time. Now we think of, in England, we think of the Salisbury Plain, but apparently it wasn't like that in the Middle Ages, which had well-fortified cities. Exactly. Yeah, I believe it was Croatia, the location of Zara at this point, Zenix. I believe that when the Venetians attacked Zara during the Fourth Crusade, wasn't that within Croatia? Okay. So Sam says, I got access to a community tab on my channel, so I'll be trying to use a combo of that and shorts to build up the channel and promote Knights of the Cross. Well, hey, thanks so much, Sam. We appreciate that. Okay, let's see what Alexander's saying. They say in videos of that battle that he was French at the battle. Maybe there was a master in Iberia, but overall I find him French. Yeah, there were different masters for different regions. And then there was the Grand Master, who generally was a resident of the Holy Land, which was, of course, considered the home of the Templars, the location for their main fight. This was where the main battle for them was. So yeah, okay. But yeah, guys, any questions you have, start firing them away. I'm totally paying attention to the questions right now, so I'm gonna keep an eye on that. We'll go till 11:30, 12:30 here. And I'm going to just search back through and just to let everybody know, Helena is going to be on next week. She was supposed to be on last week, but we both kind of forgot. But she's going to join us, so that'll be good. And we got one from Chris here. I think one key thing for the Mongols to have conquered Europe if they were masters of naval warfare, But based on the Mongol invasion of Japan, that wasn't the case. Yeah, that was something else. Some of the lectures I've listened to, some of these professors pointed out that the Mongols did not have the naval ability that they would have needed also to really affect a conquest in Europe as well. Lambert, I have wondered for a long time where the hubris that Antioch felt when they would not wait for their allies at the field of blood came from. What was their reason for such overconfidence? It's funny you should bring that up because I was just reading about the field of blood the other day. And, well, part of it was they'd won a lot already. They had that major victory in 1115 where Roger defeated the Turks at the Battle of, what was the name of that battle? Tell something. But there was an important battle in 1115 that they won. And they also tended to be the dominant power in northern Syria at that time. It was a gamble. I mean, for the Crusaders, there was an element of trying to maintain the advantage by being aggressive and by doing things that were a little bit daring sometimes to pull off a victory in the face of what should have been a defeat. I think especially early on, that was kind of how it worked. The Normans really dominated northern Syria for the first couple of decades after the First Crusade. And they did it with very small forces. I mean, it's kind of amazing. Aleppo was on the verge of falling to them. But yeah, I mean, it was the wrong move, obviously. Roger of Salerno he misjudged, It pays to be cautious in warfare. Richard the Lionheart was famously cautious in warfare, which is kind of funny, given, what his reputation is. I think people tend to think, oh, he was just such a hothead. No, he was actually very cautious. He did not, he didn't go in half cocked. But yeah, I mean, that's an interesting battle. And yeah, that was an issue of moving too far away from their main supply lines and, becoming encircled quickly. So Zenix, Zadar is a Croatian town, right? Venetians snatched a lot of our coastal cities over time. Then Italy took this as justification to take our coast after WW1 and WW2. Blame Venice for everything bad. Yeah, I got to say, when I went to Venice, I was kind of struck by looking at the historical sites and the, like the government rooms where you can still visit, where they had like the government of the Republic operated and the courts operated, and even the cathedral itself. I mean, you get this kind of sense that this was a society that was very, very motivated by commerce. I mean, you don't get as much of that warrior mysticism that you get in England or France or, in the various nightly places, like Croatia, Hungary. I mean, yeah, I mean, I don't know. It was a little bit alienating, but I don't know. I don't want to diss on the Venetians. I mean, they did help out in the Crusades a lot, but yeah, I mean, the Fourth Crusade is so ridiculous, and especially the conquest of Zara. I mean, I almost feel like that was worse than Constantinople, because, I mean, this was literally a part of Latin Christendom. This was literally, I believe, a town that officially had participants involved in this crusade that had been called up. And, Constantinople had a history of being backstabbing to the Crusaders. And in some ways, I mean, I've often speculated that maybe ultimately Constantinople needed to be a target of the Latin world just to eliminate that issue of having to deal with Byzantine treachery, which, wasn't always a problem, but sometimes was. And especially after, the way things went down in the Third Crusade. I mean, Frederick Barbarossa, he shows up, he's there to he really was there for friendly purposes. He just wanted to get through the empire, and they just attack him. I mean, at that point, it's kind of like, okay, forget this, you know. But anyway, yeah, okay. Alexander. In Wikipedia, it says he was Portuguese for Iberia. Yeah, there was one. William Pice, I think, is one of the famous Portuguese masters. I think he might have already been dead by the time of Las Novas de Tolosa, but there are quite a few Portuguese grandmasters, you know, who came from that area too. Lambert, once he committed, he did not waver. Yeah, exactly. Richard the Lionheart, he would not do something that he thought might end badly, but once he felt like it was definitely going to turn out well, he would go for it. Xanax. I wonder how many stabbings occurred in the government room. Yeah, I don't know. The government room didn't kind of inspire any kind of feeling of, you know, the sort of hallowed feeling you feel in some of these historical sites in when you visit different medieval sites in Europe. But Ray, did Richard send kingdom commands back to England when he was on crusade? Yeah, King Richard organized a very effective government in his entire kingdom, which was kind of almost like an empire. It included parts of France and included England. His government was very effective. It's kind of a myth that like he left and everything fell apart. That's not true at all. What happened was everything was going well until Philip, when Richard was captured in Germany, and Richard was captured in Germany, and Philip started to actively attack Richard's lands and started to foment John as a traitor within the territory. That started to create problems. But even then, I mean, it held together. There were a lot of problems at that point, but the administration survived that incredible difficulty, which, by the way, if that had been the Byzantine Empire, it would have been done. Yeah. So there's that question. Did he? I think, you know what? I think I misunderstood your question. Did he send commands back to England? He did communicate, yeah, with his governing body back in England. His mother was actually one of those who helped maintain the government while he was gone. But the administration he left behind was very capable of governing and did so effectively. Alexander, were most warriors on the ground during the Crusades French and the Navy's Italian? Yeah, I would say for the most part, that's probably fair to say. Depending on how we define French, of course, at that time, France was, unlike during the Third Crusade, France was both Angevin and Capuchin, so it wasn't entirely one thing. But yeah, French speaking for the most part. A lot of Italians involved in the Crusades, a lot of English too. Of course, a lot of them were French speaking as well during the Crusades. Of course, Italian Normans who were French speaking. So, but you know, a lot of Germans too, but probably their numbers were generally smaller than French speaking individuals. Sam, worth noting, at least with the Third Crusade, the Frankish forces had a fair amount of their own treachery to the Crusade. Philip Augustus, for example. Yeah, that's fair enough. That's fair enough, Sam. But it is interesting, though, despite the tension between the Angevin and Capuchin factions during the Third Crusade, how well they ultimately did work together. Philip wasn't really able to hold on to the loyalty of his subjects. In theory, they were still partisan toward him, and they did kind of grudgingly follow Richard, but they did follow Richard for the most part. And, you know, after Philip left, Richard was the overall commander, and guys like the Duke of Burgundy, even if they were grudging about it, they still went along with it. So that's actually one thing that always kind of strikes me about the Crusades, because people will talk about, oh, they were always fighting with each other, they were squabbling with each other, and that is true. There was a lot of that, but at the same time, the remarkable thing is how often those differences and that squabbling didn't result in a real breakdown of coordinated action. You know, even like Bohemond and Raymond IV, famous rivals during the First Crusade. I mean, they mostly worked together. They did, you know. as much as they hated each other, and I'm sure they did, I have no doubt that they hated each other's guts. And I think the Duke of Burgundy hated Richard. I think Richard hated him. But they did cooperate. So, okay. Zytron. Do you think you'll ever make a video about the happenings back in Europe during the Third Crusade? That would be interesting. That would be a good video topic, because that is pretty intriguing. Okay, I have an email here. Let me make sure it's not a... Oh, it's from Lambert. Okay, looks like we got his shirt here. Let's check this out. So we got one from the fans here, guys. Lambert's going to show off his Battle of Antioch shirt. So let's show that. Let's see here. Let's share screen. I'll have my producer pull up this image for me. All right, there's our buddy Lambert. He's rocking the Antioch shirt, and he's got his King Richard statue in the background and his Battle of Arsuf print in the background too. Nice. All right. This man is ready for action. Excellent. Thank you, Lambert. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah, the Antioch shirt turned out really well. I do really like it, because I think that image of Bohemond climbing up the wall of Antioch is just very cool. And then I don't know, I just like the idea of making these shirts that kind of, Antioch 1098, kind of I was there type thing. Sort of like a commemorative type shirt. All right, well, we're pretty much done. Let's get a couple more questions here. We got a bunch, as usual, at the end, we got a bunch of good comments here. Xenix, apparently Richard the Lionheart crash landed at Ragusa or Dubrovnik. It's an interesting city because it was an independent republic until the 19th century, more specifically at Lokrum. Okay. Have you read in any of the sources about this stormy incident with Richard? Yeah, I mean, I've kind of read about where he wrecked and how he, got very close to getting to friendly territory, but ended up being picked up by the agents of of Duke Leopold. So I didn't remember exactly those regions, but yeah, that is interesting. I appreciate you bringing that up for us, Zenix. Alexander, I'm just going to blow through our final comments here, guys. On Swedish Crusades, Birger Jarl's crusade in Finland and crusades there later made Finland Swedish until 1809, and Birger Jarl's brother died on crusade in Estonia. Yeah, the Swedish Crusades are probably one area I need to brush up on. But that's an interesting front. Xenix, this happened when he was returning from the Third Crusade. Yes. Sheila, I suppose they had to hold their noses in order to work with one another. Right. And the point I want to get at with that is that the cause was so important that it motivated, and there was a lot of social pressure behind it too. Like, even if let's imagine, hold on one second. Okay. Let's imagine that you're a lord or an important man in Latin Christendom, and you don't even care about the Crusades. You think it's stupid. Philip Augustus, for example, you don't care about this. I mean, there is a lot of pressure to be a part of the team because this is the thing to do, and you could easily lose the loyalty of your vassals if you show yourself unable to deal with this. I mean, the First Crusade. So often the ordinary people, the ordinary crusaders, pushed the leadership to cooperate more effectively together because they were combined in their concern for this cause. Okay. Pretty nice at Lambert 41. It's a good comment from Sheila. Yeah, that is a good looking shirt. And Lambert did an awesome thing for us, showing it for us. And Lambert says, thank you. So this will be our last question. This is actually for Lambert. So Lambert, you've got to answer the final question. Where did you get that statue of King Richard? I would like to know that myself because I think I need one of those. I think I need one of those on my desk to put it up high enough that my kids can't reach it. So we'll let Lambert answer that for us. And while he's doing that, just a final shout out here to you guys for the Knights of the Cross project. Check it out. I'm sure most of you already have, but here it is, knightsofthecross.com. Again, there's going to be a special stream this Friday, 7 U.S. Central Time, 7 p.m. in the evening, 8 Eastern Time. This Friday with Austin and I, we're going to show the Purgatory scene again. This time, that stream will stay up so everybody can watch it as much as they want. And we're also going to talk about the release date for the pilot. So we will give that date out and hype the show a little bit more. It's coming out. So November is going to be the release for the Knights of the Cross pilot. So Lambert, you've still got to tell us where you got that awesome statue. We're waiting, Lambert. We're waiting. And one more thing I want to let you guys know about as well is that, let me jump over here. New video coming out in a couple days will be, make sure I've got that up. Could the Mongols have conquered Europe? So hopefully that generates just a little bit of controversy, gets people talking, because that's often helpful on YouTube. So, okay, well, we'll have to let Lambert tell us next time where he got the statue. That'll be a cliffhanger. So join us next Tuesday for Coffee and the Crusades. Ask me anything about the Crusades. We will be live right here at 12 noon Eastern Time, 11 a.m. Central Time. And everybody have a good week. I will talk to you soon.